Well, hello there, everybody. How are you on this middle of the weekday, hump day, whatever day? I speak favor as today's a favor day. Yeah. How are you? Thank you for tuning in. Awfully quiet there in the chat room. Hello, Robert V. He's going to have his show Saturday night. I, along with others, will honored to be a guest. So, Robert, looking forward to it, my brother. Um, Nothing missing, nothing broken be our reality. If words count, then I say that those are the power words. Got favor. Yes. Nothing missing, nothing broken. You can say that to any of your fears or whatever. Whatever that fear is. Nothing missing, nothing broken. Hello, Jackie. What's up, Stephanie? Good to see you, Loretta and DC. Good to see you as well. Lori, hello, Lost in Space. Dave Sullivan, what's up? And good to see you. William, hello, what's up? Good to see you. Cat Whisper, how are you? Haven't seen you before. Welcome. Mad Cow, what's up? Linda Espinoza, how are you, dear? Grace, good to see you, darling. Janny, hello. Go all the way over from Croatia. How's the weather over there? Cold? Yeah. Robert Scott, how are you? Good to see you, my friend. Jacqueline, hello. Yeah, favor. Rick, what's up, buddy? Happy day fiesta. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Cheers to wherever you may be. If you're having your favorite libation, enjoy. Here's to you. Looking good, by the way. So, what's up? Telling you, folks, the fun house, we haven't even gotten through the front door. It's expected to become, well, ever so more interesting. Crazy stuff. So, the one thing about, I would say, religion, science, um, I think philosophy is that within each religion, it teaches absolutes. And Gogo said it's cold and clear, good weather. Cool, good to see you. Emperor Rex, hello. Miss Nina, how are you, my dears? Brenda, Street Mom, hello. So you have this factors of absolute. When I was in Christianity as a Christian, I mean, I took it at face value, right? That yeah, there's other religions, but they're all lost. They're in the dark. I had the true religion. And as far as what my future was going to be, I really didn't need to worry about it, because, if I screwed up, I could just ask forgiveness in Jesus' name. And, the record was cleared. And the thing about those type of beliefs is that it closes you off to any possibility that you might be wrong, in which I would have to say most, if not all, religions are wrong. Even within science, Einstein, reason why he could never bring the unification theory was that he had to admit that there was this thing, whether you want to say it's 1 billionth of a percent or if it's 1 or 2%, whatever it is, it's the random factor. In other words, things don't always turn out the way they're supposed to. In fact, rarely do they. And that becomes a challenge because if you believe in absolutes, particularly where your core belief systems are, how do you deal with the random factor? It's there. We even see it in our science. We definitely see it in our religion. definitely anything, there's that random factor. It's like walking into a casino. You know the odds are against you. You know? They ain't making, put it that way, with all those pretty lights out there in Vegas, I'll guarantee you it isn't because they're making everybody a winner. But even the odd makers, the people that have the high degrees and think out the whole logic, the whole thing on, betting, you've got that random factor. You can have what they call beginner's luck. We're going to talk one day next week about luck. And their luck will defy all of the norms, you know, the percentages. And so we have a term for it, it's beginner's luck. No. And I think that comes in, I saw it was Abbott, I think, talking about reincarnation. Now, I'm not sure about reincarnation. In my former religion, Christianity, the Apostle Paul wrote, "It's given unto man once to live, then die, and then judgment." Okay. Doesn't that just give you the warm and fuzzies? No, you get scared of that shit. Um, and it's interesting because as you look at the ideology of philosophy as it moved east to west, that it became bastardized. Western culture is basically a bastardization of the more previous long-lived civilizations prior to Western culture. The problem with Western culture, which I'm a part of and a product of, is that it's very restrictive, along with being out wrong, but we won't get into that. So these understandings, truths, okay. Um, I have to look at it because I always looked at it from a numbers thing, If we had the one, then we had the two, then we had the three, and then we had the four, then we had the three, and you're looking, okay, all right. Of course, they can't factor in what happened to Cain. How the hell did he marry someone? Did he, was he with his sister? Hmm. I don't know. Uh, and then they never tell you where the plains people come from. Were they Adams? Who the hell are they? Oh, no, they're outsiders. You know, they're Republicans or Democrats. That's how you have to think of it. Well, they're Christians, no, they're, so where the hell did they come from? And then how did they factor into the whole equation? Because now we have that paradoxical thing that's going, no, wait a minute. This is a conundrum. Supposedly you have the one, which has been so indoctrinated into Western ideology. Well, we all came from Adam. No matter who the most hardcore atheists, well, it may just be that we came from a single cell. And the miracle of all this is that we don't understand that. We don't understand consciousness. Science can't, number one, cannot define for you what consciousness is. So, uh, you think about that one. Oh, gee. So again, this reincarnation thing, the numbers never added up to me. But I had to come to a point, when you have to be honest, you put that mirror in front of you, that I had a very limited perspective. Seriously. In Western ideology, theology, philosophy, um, you know, it's kind of skewed to one particular point of view. And the thing about knowledge seekers, I think the ones that are little more seasoned, we know that so often the answers to the questions that we seek are seldom what we assume or expect them to be. And that's good. It keeps you agile and it keeps you questioning. Take inventory of your beliefs. So Abbott, and the thing I thought was interesting because he included the Nephilim. Well, I don't buy that story. I don't know, not saying that the giants weren't here. Yes, they were. But is it really what that narrative is saying? I mean, it very well could be that they were a separate race, not even of human origin. Or it could be simply the continuing story of the days of our lives. And what we're really talking about here is the geneticist. I mean, even today, the whole UFO thing, it's about genetics. Medicine has now moved from what was for a long time petrochemical oil, petroleum, to now we're into cell genetics. If you look at the Hindu belief system, it kind of tells a story about the genetic wars. And so maybe the Nephilim is really a watered down truth that, well, there weren't these cats that could fly or magically appear or, walk through interdimensional doors and then suddenly had the genitalia of one particular gender. It's real interesting because you never hear about female angels. Now people will say, well, but Wayne, they have the feminine to it. It's assigned to it. I'm just being practical here. You can't show me any book where an angel had a vagina and suddenly opened her vagina up to all humans. No, it's the other way around. It's like, well, what the hell does that have to do with what you're talking about? It has everything to do with it. Because if you follow out the logic on this, it doesn't make sense. You know, churches and congregations hate people like us. We're the shit disturbers. We're the ones that ask the questions. When I was making that, and it was a painful decision. You come to some beliefs, and let me retract that, not beliefs, knowledge that impacted your beliefs. And when you find out that it was a lie, a distortion, yeah, well, that certainly causes the house of cards to come down, and you have to evaluate it all. But the great thing about the fact that we're here, if reincarnation is true, I mean, think about it. Well, are you then assuming that all reincarnations take place in this plane of existence and what this planet we call Earth? I mean, we're going to find out in Hindu beliefs, the universe is vast. Its dimensions can't be counted. But if you narrow all of your beliefs to mere factors of what you've been taught here, well, you always end up with that thing and you go, damn, Sam. All right. So let's get into this. I really think, and thank you for the emails. A lot of you, this is an interesting thing because in the last couple of days, when I start seeing requests that hit over 30, please send me the PDF. Please send me the PDF. It tells me it's striking a chord. Um, Robert V over at Milky Way Soul Tribe's been doing shows on this whole belief and what we is really, I can say this, it's the highest pagan holiday celebrated as a religious event. What was that? What was that? Yeah, well, get the replay. What was that? All right. Chapter 2. I love this. It gets better and better, folks. I've read the book and it's telling my wife. I said there is this kind of the satisfaction kind of a feeling. It's like, yeah, this really resonates. All right. Chapter 2, the link or the paraspirit. The link or the paraspirit, which unites the body and the spirit. It's what they discovered 2 years ago, a new organ in the human body. There is this envelope. It eluded medical science for whoever knows how long, ever since we began to cut into other people. And anyway, it's this, and it's an organ. I wonder if this has anything to do with it, because it says it unites the body and the spirit in a sort of semi-material envelope. Death is the destruction of the material body, which is the grossest of man's two envelopes. But the spirit preserves his other envelope, the paraspirit, which constitutes for him an ethereal body, invisible to us in its normal state, but which he can render occasionally visible, even tangible, as is the case in apparitions. When we look out into the stars, I mean, we now know we are seeing such a limited view. The stars, space is filled. Light is everywhere, light we can't see. And it tells me if there's other aspects of light, then that tells me there's most likely life that is adapted primarily to that light. What say you? We continue. A spirit, therefore, is not an abstract, undefined being, only to be conceived of by our thought. It is a real, circumscribed being, which, in certain cases, is appreciable by the senses of sight, hearing, and touch. Spirits belong to different classes and are not equal to one another either in power, in intelligence, in knowledge, or in morality. Those of the highest order are distinguished from those below them by their superior purity and knowledge, their nearness to God, and their love of goodness. They are angels or pure spirits. The other classes are more and more distant from this perfection. Those of the lower ranks are inclined to be to most of our passions, hatred, envy, jealousy, pride. They take pleasure in evil. I mean, it's like the song In Excess. We're all the devil inside. We're all Jesus fucking Christ on the inside. It's true. Among them are some who are neither very good nor very bad, but are teasing and troublesome rather than malicious, are often mischievous and unreasonable, and may be classed as giddy or foolish spirits. Spirits do not belong perpetually to the same order. All are destined to attain perfection by passing through the different degrees of the spiritual hierarchy. This Amillennium is an effect by incarnation, which is imposed on some of them as an expiation, and on others as a mission. Material life is a trial which they have to undergo many times until they have attained to absolute perfection. Now, here's just I don't know what absolute perfection is. I wish this guy was still alive because I would write to him and say, well, then please explain to me, I think particularly from a Hindu perspective, what is perfection? What I have studied in the Western side of the equation is that absolute perfection is no expenditure of energy. You could say it's 0 point energy. It has no disturbance of thought. Now, I don't know if that's alive. I don't know if that's dead. It almost would seem that we as gods, we enjoy the challenge of chaos. Maybe that's why most of us are here. I don't know. But again, coming from a Hindu perspective, what is this absolute perfection? I don't know what that is. And he writes, it is a sort of filter, an amalek from which they issue more or less purified after each new incarnation. Well, it's odd that you become less purified, apparently, through some trips. Maybe, but then again, how do we base this? Are we basing it on the perception of time? I don't think in this true ethereal realm that time exists, that maybe exist on all planes. I don't know. On quitting the body, the soul re-enters the world of spirits from which it came and from which it will enter upon a new material existence after a longer or shorter lapse of time, during which its state is that of an errant or wandering spirit. Time I always see that word wandering, it's always Nibiru, wandering planet or star. Yeah. And then there's an ASCII note here, and it says there is between this doctrine of reincarnation and that of the metempsychosis are held by certain sects in India, a characteristic difference which is explained in the course of the present work. So there is a difference, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, this culture is far older than even the Bible. Well, then that technically would be older than God, wouldn't it? Why would God want a birthday? Anyway, spirits having to pass through many incarnations, it follows that we have all had many existences, and that we shall have others more or less perfect, either upon this earth or in other worlds. When I read this the first time, there was this leap inside of me, and it said, there you go. I've sensed this for a long time. This is not the only plane. If it is a degree of challenges, I don't know how if this one is even any more tougher or lesser than other potential worlds, other potential existences. One of the problems with Western religion is that it makes God a wasteful being. I don't think that is the case. A creative being never stops creating, right? The problem that I have seen is that I was taught for 50 years that creation was a one-time Annie, No. Apparently it never stops. A spirit's successive corporeal existences are always progressive and never retrograde. But the rapidity of our progress depends on the efforts we make to arrive at perfection. And again, I know what the meaning of the word is. I'm just not sure that the meaning of the word perfectly describes what it is. The qualities of the soul are those of the Spirit incarnated in us. Thus, a good man is the incarnation of a good spirit, and a bad man is that of an unpurified spirit. The soul possessed its own individuality before its incarnation. It preserves the individuality after its separation from the body. On its reentrance into the spirit world, the soul again finds all of those whom it has known upon the earth, and all of its former existences eventually come back to its memory, with the remembrance of all the good and of all the evil which it has done in them. The incarnated spirit is under the influence of matter. The man who surmounts this influence through the elevation and purification of his soul raises himself nearer to the superior spirits, among whom he will one day be classed. He who allows himself to be ruled by bad passions and places all his delight in the satisfaction of his gross animal appetites brings himself near to the impure spirits by giving preponderance to his animal nature. Incarnated spirits inhabit the different globes of the universe. Spirits who are not incarnated, who are errant, do not occupy any fixed or circumscribed region. They are everywhere. Wow. In space and around us, seeing us and mixing with us incessantly. They constitute an invisible population, constantly moving and busy about us on every side. We're going to get into this. When you think about how many souls have passed through the portal or gate called Earth, billions, trillions, quadrillions. I mean, what's the number? And when you think about this, they're all around us. Trina was talking about her conversation with Brian. I love this. Spirits exert an incessant action upon the moral world. I mean, we all think about it. I know I'm not the only one. What makes us so appealing to spirits? If there's this vast universe, multi dimensions, why are they attracted to Earth? I mean, is this a phenomenon that is universal, dimensional? But it's very clear they play a major role, and apparently it's something that, well, it's just within my grasp of comprehending. Let's continue. They act both upon matter and upon thought, and constitute one of the powers of nature, the efficient cause of many classes of phenomena hereto unexplained or misinterpreted, and of which only the Spiritist theory can give a rational explanation. Spirits are incessantly in relation with men. The good spirits try to lead us into the right road, sustain us under the trials of life, and aid us to bear them with courage and resignation. The bad ones tempt us to evil. It is a pleasure for them to see us fall and to make us like themselves. And if you think about this, then it appears that this spiritual hierarchy that exists has more influence in, again, we as corporeal mortal beings seem to be in the minority here. Now, if we are so insuperior, lesser, fallen, then why the hell do they pay so much attention to us? Why do they try to intervene into our lives and the affairs of man? It tells me we are probably more powerful than they are. And if you're a spirit being in a body right now listening to me, huh, you know, maybe that's the great illusion. We're far more powerful than what we can ever imagine. I have that little voice in the back saying, "You're onto something, dude." All right, shall we continue? The communications of spirit with men are either occult or obstinable. Their occult communications are made through the good or bad influences they exert on us without our being aware of it. It is our duty to distinguish by the exercise of our judgment between the good and the bad inspirations that are thus brought to bear upon us. Their ostensible communications take place by means of writing, of speech, or of other physical manifestations, and usually through an intermediary of the mediums who serve as their instruments. And that's multiple instruments. Spirits manifest themselves spontaneously or in response to evocation. All spirits may be invoked. Those who have animated the most obscure of mortals, as well as those of the most illustrious personages, and whatever the epoch at which they lived. Wow. Think about that. Those of our relatives, our friends, and of our enemies, and we may obtain from them by written or verbal communications, counsels, information in regard to their situation beyond the grave, their thoughts in regard to us, and whatever revelations they are permitted to make to us. Apparently, they can tell us things, but they can't tell us everything. Like we didn't know that already. Spirits are attracted by their sympathy with the moral quality of the parties by whom they are invoked. Spirits of superior elevation take pleasure in meeting of a serious character, animated by the love of goodness and the sincere desire of instruction and improvement. Their presence repels the spirits of inferior degree, who find, on the contrary, free access and freedom of action among persons of frivolous dispositions, or brought together by mere curiosity, and whatever evil instincts are to be met with. You know, the thing about a spirit board or a Ouija board, people are freaked out about it. I don't have a problem with it. Well, A, I'm not there as a child and curious. I know that if I engage that particular modality, I best have my shit together. As the 3-year-old told their mom, "What are you going to do when you see the monster?" "I'm going to kick their ass." "Well, why are you going to do that?" "Because they're going to come kick my ass." Just saying. So don't mess with it if you don't know how to handle it. It's like that car, it's got 750 horsepower under it. If you're only used to driving a car that has 100 horsepower, it's going to kick your ass. Moving on. It says, so far from obtaining from spirits under such circumstances, either good advice or useful information, nothing is to be expected from them but triflings, lies, ill-natured tricks, or humbuggering. I love that word. That's an old English word. For they often borrow the most venerated names in order to impose upon those whom they are in communication. Language of the spirits. It is easy to distinguish between good and bad spirits. The language of spirits of superior elevation is constantly dignified, noble, characterized by the highest morality, free from every trace of earthly passion. Their counsels breathe the purest wisdom and always have our improvement and good of mankind for their aim. The communication of spirits of lower degree, on the contrary, are full of discrepancies, and their language is often commonplace and even coarse. If they sometimes say things that are good and true, they more often make false and absurd statements, prompted by ignorance or malice. They play upon the credulity of those who interrogate them, amusing themselves by flattering their vanity and fooling them with false hopes. In a word, instructive communications worthy of the name are only to be obtained in centers of serious character, where members are united by an intimate communication of thought and desire in the purest pursuit of truth and goodness. What I get from that is that, okay, I mean, you can do a seance. I mean, that's what you do when you do a prayer circle. I mean, I was in church for 50 years, and that's what we did. We were communicating and communing with the spirit world. It's so true. It's just a matter of your perspective. The moral teaching of the higher spirits may be summed up like that of Christ in the gospel maxim, do unto others as you would that others should do unto you. That is to say, do good to all and wrong no one. This principle of action furnishes mankind with a rule of conduct of universal application, from the smallest matters to the greatest. They teach us that selfishness, pride, sensuality are passions which bring us back towards the animal nature by attaching us to matter. That he who, in this lower life, detaches himself from the matter through contempt of worldly trifles and through love of the neighbor, brings himself back towards the spiritual nature. That we should all make ourselves useful according to the means which God has placed in our hands for our trial, that the strong and the powerful owe aid and protection to the weak, and that he who misuses strength and power to oppress his fellow creature violates the law of God. That can be any God you want. I mean, I don't have a problem with this. I really don't. Because, if you go down the path to harm someone, as we found out last week about curses, never ends well. Never. They teach us that in the spirit world, nothing can be hidden, and that the hypocrite will there be unmasked, and all his wickedness unveiled, that the presence unavoidable and perpetual of those whom we have wronged in the earthly life is one of the punishments that await us in the spirit world, and that the lower or higher state of spirits give rise in that other life to sufferings or to enjoyments unknown to us upon the earth. What this is really saying, and this is just my speak, it's responsibility. Today, that's the single problem with our society. No one, none of the politicians, none of the religious leaders, no one in the social aspect, no one wants to take personal responsibility. Kind of tells you where the world's heading towards, right? I mean, if you can take the personal responsibility as a god in this realm, there's only good things waiting for you. It's a natural law. We continue. But they also teach us that there are no unpardonable sins, none that cannot be effaced by expiation. Man finds the means of accomplishing this in the different existences which permit him to advance progressively and according to his desire and his efforts towards the perfection that constitutes his ultimate aim. That's why we all don't go to the same place. Hmm? That's the real truth, isn't it? We're really going to find out, all right, was this just talk or did you actually walk the talk? Yeah. Like, oh crap. Um, Such is the sum of Spiritist doctrine as contained in the teachings given by spirits of high degree. Let us now consider the objections that are urged against it. Many persons regard the opposition of the learned world as constituting, if not a proof, at least a very strong presumption of the falsity of Spiritism. The Hindu priests are not of those who affect indifference in regard to the judgment of scientific men. On the contrary, we hold them in great esteem and should think it an honor to be of their number. But we cannot consider their opinion as being, under all circumstances, necessarily and absolutely conclusive. When the vortices of science go beyond the bare observation of facts, when they attempt to appraise and to explain those facts, they enter upon the field of conjecture. Each advances a system of his own, which he does his utmost to bring into favor and defends with all might and main. Do we not see every day the most divergent systems brought forward and rejected one after the other, now cried down to absurd errors, and now cried up as incontestable truths? Facts are the sole criterion of reality, the sole argument that admits of no reply. In the absence of facts, the wise man suspends his judgment. In regard to all matters that have already been fully examined, the verdict of the learned is justly held to be authoritative, because their knowledge of them is further and more enlightened than that of the ordinary men. But in regard to occult facts or principles, to matters imperfectly known, their opinion can only be a hypothetic, because they are no more exempt from prejudice than other people. It may even be said that scientific men are more apt to be prejudiced than the rest of the world, because each of them is naturally inclined to look at everything from a special point of view that has been adapted by him. The mathematician admitting no other order of proof than that of the algebraic demonstration, the chemist referring everything to the action of the element, when a man has made for himself a specialty, he usually devotes his whole mind to it. Beyond the scope of this specialty, he often reasons falsely, because owing to the weakness of human reasoning, he insists on treating every subject in the same way. And therefore, while we should willingly and confidently consult a chemist in regard to a question of analysis, a physicist in regard to electricity, a mechanician in regard to the motive power, we must be allowed within any way of degrading from the respect due to their special knowledge, to attach no more weight to their unfavorable opinion of Spiritism than we should do to the judgment of an architect on questioning relating to the theory of music. I love this stuff. I don't know about you, but it's a good read. And it makes a lot of common sense. Shall we continue? I want to make sure that I have the right spot here. Mystic India. O mystic India, with many centuries span of wondrous growth, almost utopian, pulsating center of astral force, whose spirit art to man impart the treasures this power alone provides, whose masters give back enriching tides of life and spiritual progress. For thy occult knowledge, all ages and nations come to thee, the prophet and seer of which the Western mind has dreamed, has in thy mystic beauty been realized and made to reach their culmination. This Dr. Laurence was, what a man. Chapter 3, we got good time here. Hindu Spiritism. The positive sciences are based on the properties of matter, which may be experimented upon and manipulated at pleasure. But spiritist phenomenon are an effect of the action of astral spirits who have wills of their own and who constantly show us that they are not subjugated to ours. The observation of facts, therefore, cannot be carried on in the latter case in the same way as in the former one, for they proceed from another source and require special conditions, and consequently, to insist upon submitting them to the same methods of investigation is to insist on assuming the existence of analogies that do not exist. Science, properly so called, is therefore incompetent as such to decide the questions of truth of Spiritism. It has nothing to do with it. Its verdict in regard to it, whether favorable or otherwise, is of no weight. Spiritist belief is the result of a personal conviction that scientific men may hold as individuals and independent of their quality as scientists. But to submit the question to the decision of physical science would be much the same thing as to set a company of physicists and astronomers to decide the question of immortality. Hindu Spiritism deals exclusively with the existence of the soul and its state after death, and it is supremely unreasonable to assume that a man must be a great psychologist simply because he is a great mathematician or great anatomist. The anatomist, when dissecting a human body, looks for the soul, and as he does not find it under his scalpel, as he finds a nerve or sees an evaporated as does a gas, he concludes that it does not exist because he reasons from an exclusively material point of view, but by no means follows that he is right and that the opinion of the rest of the world is wrong. We see, therefore, that the task of deciding as to the truth or falsity of Spiritism does not fall within the scope of physical science. When Spiritist beliefs shall become generalized, when they shall have been accepted by the masses, and if I may judge by the rapidity with which they are being propagated, that time can hardly be very distant. It will be with those beliefs, as with all new ideas that have encountered opposition, and scientific men will end by yielding to the force of evidence. They will be brought individually by the force of things to admit ideas that they have now rejected, and until then, it would be premature to turn them from their special studies in order to occupy them with a matter which is foreign alike to their habits of thought and to their spheres of investigation. Imagine this was written in 1909. So, how much science has in fact shown, and we can use the word magic, we can use whatever, that there is this other realm. And the whole thing of string theory. How's that any different than entering into dimensions of non-corporeal conscious beings? The erroneous judgments of learned men in regard to certain discoveries, though regrettable for the honor of their memory, do not invalidate the title of our esteem acquired by them in regard to other matters, but is common sense only to be found associated with an official diploma? And are there only fools and simpletons outside the walls of scientific institutions? Let our opponents yeah, I get that when I'm going, yeah, because I'm the guy on the outside, you know. Many of you are as well. Let our opponents condescend to glance over the ranks of the partisans of Spiritism in the temples of India and see whether they contain only persons of inferior understanding, or whether, on the contrary, considering the immense number of men of worth by whom it has been embraced, it can be regarded as belonging to the category of old wives' fable, whether in fact the character and scientific knowledge of its adherents do not rather deserve that it should be said. When such men affirm a matter, there must be at least be something in it. How many of you studied the temples over there in India? There's a gentleman on YouTube. Um, can't recall his name, but these temples, I don't think humans built some of these. If we did, then we've lost that knowledge and that technology. And there are some of the places in these temples that defy the natural laws. Yeah. He says, I repeat that if the facts we are about to consider had been limited to the mechanical movement of inert bodies, physical science would have been competent to seek out the physical cause of the phenomenon. And here's the thing, in the realm of science, physics, there hasn't been any new discoveries of any particular great impact. In many cases, you could say that modern science is dead, or at least on life support. There are areas of making advancement, but I mean, yeah. Some people say, well, maybe we don't agree with that. Well, maybe you might not. But anyway, it is true. We continue. But the manifestations in question, being professedly beyond the actions of laws or forces yet known to men, they are necessarily beyond the competence of human science. When the facts to be observed are novel and do not fall within the scope of any known science, the scientist, in order to study them, should throw his science temporarily aside, remembering that a new study cannot be fruitfully prosecuted under the influence of preconceived ideas. Isn't that true for all of us? Yeah, that's what I used to teach in sales. Don't get used to your own pitch. He who believes his reason to be infallible is very near to error. Even those whose ideas are of the falsest profess to base them on reason, and it is in the name of reason that they reject whatever seems to them to be impossible. They who formerly rejected the admirable discoveries that are the glory of the human mind did so in the name of reason. For what men call reason is often only pride disguised. And whoever regards himself as infallible virtually claims to be God's equal. I, therefore, address myself to those who are reasonable enough to suspend their judgment in regard to what they have not yet seen, and who, judging by the future, by the past, do not believe that man has reached his apogee, or that nature has turned over for him the last leaf of her book. Let me add that the study of such a theory as that of Spiritism and Magick, which introduces me to at once to an order of phenomenon so novel and so grand, can only be fruitfully pursued by persons of a serious turn of mind, preserving, free from prejudice, and animated by a firm and sincere determination to arrive at the truth. We could not give this qualification to those who decide, in regard to such a subject, a priori, lightly, and without thorough examination, who bring to the work of study neither the method, the regularity, nor the sustained attention necessary to success. Still less could we give it to those who, not to lose their reputations for wit and sharpness, seek to turn into ridicule matters of the most serious import, or that are judged to be such by persons whose knowledge, character, and convictions should be commanded respect. Let those who consider the facts in question as unworthy for their attention abstain from studying these writings. No one would attempt to interfere with their belief, but let them, on their part, respect the belief of those who are of contrary opinion. The characteristics of serious study are the method and the perseverance with which it is carried on. It is strange that sensible answers are not always obtained from spirits in reply to questions, which, however serious in themselves, are propounded at random, and in the midst of the host of others, unconnected, frivolous, or foolish. Besides, a question is often complex, and the answer to it, in order to be clear, needs to be preceded or completed by various considerations. Whoever would acquire any science must make it the object of methodical study, must begin at the beginning and follow out the sequence and development of the ideas involved in it. If one who is ignorant of the most elementary facts of science should ask a question in regard to it of the most learned of its professors, could the professor, however excellent his learning, give him a satisfactory answer? For any isolated answer given under such conditions must necessarily be incomplete and would therefore, in many cases, appear unintelligible or even absurd. It is exactly the same in regard to the relations which we establish with spirits. If we would learn in their school, we must go through a complete course of teaching with them. But as among ourselves, we must select our teachers and work on with steadfastness and assiduity. I have said that spirits or superior advancement are only attracted to sinners in which there reigns a serious desire for light, and above all, a perfect communication of thought and feeling in the pursuit of moral excellence. Frivolity and idle curiosity repel them, just as among men they repel all reasonable people. And the road is thus left open to the mob of foolish and lying spirits who are always about us, watching for opportunities of mocking us and amusing themselves at our expense. What becomes of any serious question in such a gathering?
It will certainly be replied to, but by whom? It is just as though, in the midst of a conventical dinner party, you would suddenly propound such questions as, what is the soul? What is death? Or others equally out of harmony with the tone of the company. If we would obtain serious answers, we must ourselves be serious and must place ourselves in the condition required for obtaining them. It is only by doing so that we shall obtain any satisfactory and ennobling communications. We must, moreover, be laborious and persevering in our investigations. Otherwise, the higher spirits will cease to trouble themselves about us, as the professor ceases to occupy himself with the hopelessly idle member of his class. The movement of inert bodies, and I'm going to go a little bit over, folks, in spirit communication is a fact already proved by experience. The point now to be ascertained is whether there is or is not a manifestation of intelligence in this movement separate from the medium. And if there is, what is the source of this intelligence? We are not speaking of the intelligence displayed in the movement of certain objects, nor of verbal communications, nor even of those which are written directly by the medium. These manifestations, of which the spirit origin is evident for those who have thoroughly investigated the matter, are not at first sight sufficiently independent of the will of the medium to bring conviction to an observer new to the subject. We will therefore only speak in this place of writing obtained without the aid of an object of any kind, provided with a pencil, such as a small basket or a planchette, the finger of the medium being placed upon the object in such a manner as to defy the most consummate skill to exercise the slightest influence on tracing of the letters. Wow. Looks like I'm going to actually end this thing because this actually gets into some pretty cool stuff. So anyway, I know I'm breaking right off there, but we'll pick it up right here because we still have quite a ways to go, and I respect y'all's time. But damn, this is good stuff. I don't know about y'all, but I love it. It's Robert V. You were talking how you know Robert does in a lot of his studies on Eastern theology, philosophy. I love it. It's an explanation of such beauty, and I just relate it to my personal experiences. It's like, yeah, okay. And if you're listening to this, thank you for hitting the like button. Then you're the same class. I mean, we're all in the same class here. I mean, so, maybe some of y'all are in the front row. Uh, Maybe some of us are in the back row. I don't know. You kind of take it from there, but yeah, go figure. All right. Cool stuff. Just cool stuff. I hope you liked it. We'll pick up tomorrow. I really like this. I mean, I think about the classes. I mean, this is what we meet here for. We're all in a class of some sort, but yet it there's a synchronicity to it. It's like, yeah, yeah. Well, let me know. Belinda, how are you? Good to see your voice by Brown Butterfly. Well, thank you, madam. Hey, Gaia, you're welcome. How's Paul? Good to see you. Jackie, thank you. Um, John, you're welcome. Yeah, I appreciated everybody that, well, if you're not listening, you wouldn't be interested in it. See, there's a spiritual thing going on here. I'm convinced that they dance. I think they really dig it. And as more of us continue to be in that place, holy cow, that's some cool stuff. I don't care what anyone says. Imagine when we get together. We're going to get our private, Zoom meeting when the time is right. But holy crapola. S. Lee, right back at you. Cat Whisper, thank you. Paul Joe, all right, appreciate it. Eric, how you doing? Uh, Eric says I was in the back seat. Yeah, I didn't tell you about that bump, but yeah, I love it. Collard is so cool. Okay, folks, went a little bit over. Thank you. Tune into Nina's channel over there. Check her out with the Hump Day Show. And wow, love the frequency in here. I see what Robert Scott was writing. It's beautiful. There's a vibe. And the spirits dig it. Richie Tai Tai, that's all I got to say. Richie Tai Tai, Owanaki, Owanaki, hey. And, I love the lyrics in that. I'm glad that I'm alive. The spirits dancing all about my head. Yeah, they dig it. All right, folks, until we meet again, Jesse James, right back at you. Um, hope it helped. I love reading it. I get to read it like 2 or 3 times, and it's like, oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, hey, Lauren, happy birthday. So Ginger Grin, I'm not going to say, well, Ginger, I know you said, what, 43, but look 43, timeless. So happy birthday to you. Hope everything is going well over there. You're in summertime down in New Zealand. So thank you for listening. It's cool. All right, folks, much love. Follow the love. That's the thing. Get those spirits dancing. That's all I know.